Good morning and welcome to the 41st Annual Winter Star Party.
Hello, my name is John O'Neill. I'm a solar amateur astronomer, and today I'm going to be talking about the ML Astro SHG 700, which is a spectroheliograph that I think is going to revolutionize the world of amateur solar astronomy. I hope you enjoy it. So I'd like to welcome everyone here. I understand this is the 41st Annual Winter Star Party. Guys like Neil and Martin back there and Sergio and a whole bunch of other people do a great job putting this all together. So if we could, a quick round of applause for them guys. So I'm here today to talk to you about this rather unassuming little device. This is a digital spectroheliograph. Who has ever heard the term spectroheliograph before? Okay, at least half of you have, so that's good. A spectroheliograph is a device to look at the sun in multiple wavelengths. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the PSTs and the Luntz and the Coronado solar telescopes. And they're scopes designed to look at the sun in one particular wavelength of light. The Coronado, I'm not sure if they have a calcium or not. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But, they do have a hydrogen. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. They're primarily a hydrogen alpha scope. Lunt has a hydrogen alpha scope and a calcium scope. And of course, Daystar has the quarks, but they're all Etalon-based devices that are used to take an image of the sun in one wavelength of light. So you can pick what you want. If you're like me, you pick them all and you buy a hydrogen alpha and a sodium D and a magnesium and a calcium and a beta white light wedge, of course, and you spend lots and lots and lots of money doing that. Well, this thing cost $800. That's it, 800 bucks. And it will look at the sun in any wavelength of light that you desire. You can tune it to hydrogen alpha, hydrogen beta, hydrogen gamma, calcium, helium, hydrogen, well, I already said hydrogen, magnesium, iron. You can see the iron emissions on the sun with this thing. It's incredible. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I was so impressed with this thing. I honestly believe that this device is introducing a revolution in solar astronomy. We're going to be able to do things with this little device that nobody in the amateur realm has done before, except for a few people that have built their own spectroheliographs, and I'll get into that, what kind of an undertaking that is here in a minute.
Can you give us a brand name on that?
Yeah, this is the ML Astro SHG 700.
ML Astro SG?
SHG for spectroheliograph.
800?
700.
Okay, thank you.
Well, some of you guys know me. You know I swear by the ZWO 174mm camera for solar astronomy. That's been my go-to camera for solar for 15 years now. With this device, the ZWO camera is kind of not optimal. It's got big, huge pixels in it. And this thing gives you the best spatial resolution at a 2 micron pixel. So I went out and bought the Altair Astro. This is it right here. 678mm camera. Let's see, it's called a GP Cam 678mm for mono.
That's got to be mono.
Yeah, got to be mono. This will not work in color, but that's okay because as you can see, that image right there is in color. So the guy that wrote the program for this camera built software so when you take an image in mono and you tell the software what bandwidth or what wavelength you were shooting in, it will colorize the image to that particular color to match. It's incredible.
Do you have a special discount until we answer?
No, I wish I did. I know people keep telling me I need to do that. So, just a little quick brief history of spectroheliography. Spectroscopy in itself, which is not the same as spectroheliography. Heliography is basically capturing images with a camera. Spectroscopy is just looking with your eyes and seeing a spectrum. And it began with Isaac Newton, not the beginnings of spectroscopy. Spectroscopy's been known, even back in ancient Egypt, they had prisms and they would shoot light around with them and play with them and have fun. But Isaac Newton was the first actual scientist to actually take a spectrum and take it into his laboratory and start splitting the light up into its component spectrums, and he even invented the word spectrum. So he's kind of he's considered the father of spectroscopy. So 100 years go by, and in the 1800s along comes Joseph von Fraunhofer. Any of you ever heard of him? Okay, good. He's the guy that looked at the sun and saw all these little black lines. And he didn't know what they were. He just said, gee, why are all these little black lines here? But even though he didn't know what they were, he spent hours meticulously going over these little black lines and describing and defining them. And to this day, those little dark absorption lines is what they are. That's where light is getting absorbed in the solar atmosphere. And we'll go into that a little more later. But he defined them, and today they bear his name. They're still called Fraunhofer lines. And the Fraunhofer lines are unique. Well, let me get into that in a little bit. So there's the solar spectrum. As you can see, the sun emits light, visible light, just in this small portion of the entire electromagnetic radiation band. And you can see there's calcium H and K. I don't remember what that one is. That's iron. Gee, I don't remember what E is now either. That's the sodium doublet right there. And here's the hydrogen alpha and beta lines. And if you were to just look through a spectrum, that's what you would see, just this continuous color band. And from the 1800s until the current day, pretty much spectroheliography remained in the realm of the professional astronomers. Any of you guys ever been to Kitt Peak? Just one? Okay, two of us. Three? Okay. Kitt Peak's a pretty cool place out in Tucson, Arizona, outside of Tucson, Arizona. And this is the McMath-Pierce telescope, which basically collects light in a mirror up here and shoots it down through here where it hits a mirror and comes back up here and hits a mirror and comes down into the control room, which I think is here. And we got a tour of that back in '86. And we got to go inside, and there's a table, probably this big in diameter, and the solar disk fills that table. Sunspots are like this in this thing. It's incredible. If you ever get there, it was closed for a while I don't know if it's open now or not, but if you ever get a chance, go visit that. It's pretty incredible.
Is that like Mount Wilson?
Yeah. So there's very few people that have ever built spectroheliographs because they're so bulky and cumbersome. And number one, in this fella's case, this is my friend Randy Shivak. Some of you may have known him. He gave a presentation here last year. He built his own spectroheliograph. And this is the celiostat. The sunlight comes in and hits this mirror and gets directed downward. And that unit is up in here. So he would have to climb this ladder every morning, open these shutters on this old silo, and let the light hit that. The light came down through a vacuum tube, hit a diagonal, turned this way, went through his basement wall, and this tube, you can see the end of it right here in his basement, where it came down and hit another diagonal and entered the actual spectroheliograph. So Randy is a machinist. So he had the knowledge to build all this stuff. And he's fortunate to have a brother that's an electrical engineer, and he designed all the electronics. So Randy he had a punch key thing. He could go out and punch the keys in and enter the date and the time, and this would go to the spot where it needed to be for that day and that time, and put the sun in this mirror and send it down to his spectroheliograph. Now, of course, how many people are going to go out and build something like this? No, me neither. Me neither. In 2018, we attended Solar Fest at the Daystar Ranch out in Missouri. And a fella named Leonard Higgins showed up with his spectroheliograph. Here it is inside. Same principle. The sunlight hits a mirror, hits another mirror, gets sent down inside, bounced around, and finally comes to the eyepiece. And there I am. After waiting 4 hours for Leonard to set this thing up and collimate it and get it working for that day, I finally got to see my very first image of the sun in a spectroheliograph. And at that point I said, oh, I want one of these, but I'm not going to go to those lengths either to have one. So, about a decade ago, a fellow named Christian Buell, and if any of you ever looked at spectroscopy or the like, you've heard of him. He's probably the guy, the go-to guy right now in the world in building spectroheliographs. And his goal, he decided he wanted to build a spectroheliograph that he could give to the world. So he built this little thing on his 3D printer. And he gave the STL files away and said, here, anybody that wants one of these, for $600, I'll send you all the little glass pieces you need. And you go to your 3D printer and you print one of these, and you can you can become a digital spectroheliograph operator. Problem is, how many of you guys have 3D printers? Okay, you know, when you 3D print stuff, it's not good to take out in the bright sun and let it sit. It decays, and it decays very quickly, and it doesn't decay homogeneously. Like, this piece might expand, this piece might contract. They just do really janky things when you take them out in the sun. So this was a great idea, and it brought SHGs to a lot of people, but it didn't work very well. Not to belittle Christian. He did a great job with this. A lot of people have used it. A lot of people are happy with it. A lot of people aren't. But a lot of people are happy with it, and it works. So kudos to him for bringing something like this to us amateurs at a reasonable price. Even though you may have to 3D print one every 3 months and put the, change the optics over, it's there and it's available. And There's just all the pieces that you have to print to make this thing. Now, one of the biggest problems with this are these controls. You see here, there's two little screws. So you have to get in there with a screwdriver and loosen both screws, and then you have to grab that orange wheel and turn it. Well, these things, SHGs, are very, very delicate and sensitive. And when you turn this, you only want to turn it, say, 300 thousandths of an inch. Well, holding that knob and trying to turn it, and it's rubbing together, there's friction in there, rubbing on it, and you go to turn it a thousandth of an inch and it goes so it's really bulky and cumbersome, and it's not easy to use. So there's a fella named Min, I can't pronounce the rest of his name, he's Vietnamese, and he's an amateur astronomer, and he's a machinist. So he bought one of Christian's 3D printed SHGs. He printed it out, he tried to use it, and he got really frustrated, and he said, this just doesn't work for me. His goal was to take this device and put it in his remote observatory where he could remote in from home and operate this thing remotely. Well, when you got all these little knobs you got to loosen and turn everything by hand, that's not going to work. So he set out and he designed a piece out of a solid block of aluminum. You can see him milling it there. And he used Christian's STL files for 3D printing to make his original device, and then he started refining it. And as you can see, this kind of doesn't look like this. He had to make a lot of changes along the way and improvements to make this thing work. And that's what the final result looks like. We have a slit up here, a collimating lens. Here we have the diffraction grating, then another collimating lens, and the camera goes on that end. And basically, in a nutshell, that's all there is to it. And this is what moves the grating back and forth so you can change wavelengths. So, you know, I've been watching Christian Buell for quite a while, and I was watching on the forums and I heard all the complaints, and I thought, well, gee, I'd like to get into this, but it seems like a real hassle and it doesn't work well. And a lot of guys were having good luck with it and a lot of guys weren't. So I didn't want to pull the trigger on something that I kind of felt was iffy. Even though a lot of guys were successful with it, I just couldn't seem to bring myself to pull the trigger. And then I learned about Min over in Vietnam building this thing. And so I started up a correspondence with him, and we talked for months. And when he told me that he was going to add the micrometers. So like I said, these things need to move just barely thousandths of an inch. Well, with a micrometer, you can do that. Now, you got a thousandth of an inch control right there at your fingertips. And if you want, you can put a little rubber band and a ZWO focuser on there, put one on each of these, and make the thing totally automatic. And you can put it out in the desert in a remote observatory and operate it from home. So when I heard about that, it's like, okay, it's time to pull the trigger. So I'm like...
So you said you could hook up a automatic focuser?
Yes. He doesn't have the holes yet for it, but that's his next step in the process, is to add motors to these. And that's going to be incredible. Right now, you have to do it all by hand, which I don't have a remote observatory, so I don't mind. And when we get into the capture portion, I'll tell you why I don't mind. But anyways, that's what his device looks like. And, You know, it's like, okay, he's just starting to produce these things in his factory. They're not even built yet. So it's still a concept. Do I want to spend $800 to Vietnam on the chance that it works? But before he started the mass production, he built one for himself and took pictures with it. And when I saw those pictures, it's like, I have no problem sending the money. This is incredible. And you'll see pictures here in a minute or two. So I sent him the $800. Seemed like it took forever. It was only 2 months. 2 months later, I got a shipping notice from Min saying your device is in the mail and you should get it before Christmas. I think I got it 2 days.
No, it was maybe
A week? Okay, about a week before Christmas. It finally showed up. And I hooked my ZWO camera to it and took pictures, and it's like, well, how come my pictures don't look like yours? And he said, well, because you got that camera in there that doesn't have the right size pixels in it. So I had to go out and get me a new camera. And that one's made by Altair Astro over in England. Good camera. Only got 2 micron. The pixels are only 2 microns in size. They're little. That 300, I think. So we're up to 1100 now, which is still only about a quarter the price of my Lunt LS60. And another thing I got to tell you, well, I'll tell you later. Now, I brought it up, I'll tell you. The resolution is so nice. Most of you guys, if any of you guys have solar telescopes, you know they usually come around 0.7 nanometers bandwidth. That's about the best you can do with a conventional Etalon. So what's everybody do? They go out and they buy a double stack, which is a second Etalon, which cost as much as the whole first scope did. So if you got $4 or $5 grand in this scope, now you're adding another $4 or $5 grand to add a double stack to get it down to 3 angstroms in bandwidth. That device is already there. You don't have to add nothing to it. You don't have to buy anything extra. It works at 0.3 nanometers. I said angstrom, I meant nanometers. Incredible. And you'll be able to see the difference once we get into the pictures. So let me just go through briefly how this thing works. It starts out with a slit. And I know that doesn't look like a slit, and it's not. They're using a lithography progress now. They take a piece of quartz glass and they etch it, or they coat it with a coating, and then they take a fine laser and cut a slit into this thing that's 7 millimeters wide and it's only 7 microns tall. 7 microns, that's 3/10,000ths of an inch tall. That's how narrow that slit is. Another, right on the very front, it's right there. So when you pull the cap off, you probably can't see it from back there, but it's right in the front. So the first thing the sunlight does is hit the slit, and all that does is give you a white line. And I'll show you more about that in a little bit too. So after it goes through the slit, it goes through a collimating lens. There's 2 75 millimeter f3.4 4-element lens sets in here and in here, and they match. And what they do is they collimate the light. So that slit image, when it comes down here, it focuses on here. And then it comes through here and this lens brings it back to focus for your camera. So the thing looks and sounds a little complicated, but it's not. It's quite simple in design and operation. Well, in design, not in operation. Okay, and it's got a 2400 line per millimeter, 1 inch by 1 inch by 6 millimeters thick grating. And for those of you that have been involved with any kind of spectroscopy, you know that's a pretty good grating. And an important note, I gotta say this, if any of you guys ever buy one of these, and you ever take it apart, which is quite easy to do, whatever you do, do not touch that. If you touch that grating, your fingerprints are there forever, for infinity. They'll never come off. You can't clean it. If you get your fingerprints on that, just take it out and throw it away and call him in and say, hey, I need a new one, which is probably $150. He'll charge you for a new one. Okay, so I said you see an image of the slit. That's what you look at. That's what you see when you take this and just point it out the window at the sky. All you see is the slit. And you use these micrometers to bring that to a razor sharp focus on your camera. And when you do that, it's ready to go out and be applied to a telescope once you get this focus accomplished. So I bought mine, I focused it out the window, and it sat there for almost 2 weeks. As you can see, we got tons and tons of snow, and it was 18 degrees outside, and no way was I going outside and spending hours sitting working on this thing.
Come on, John, no guts, no glory.
That's right, no guts, no glory, Sergio. When you hit 70 and you're on blood thinners, cold is colder than cold.
Come up to Michigan and we don't even get blue skies like that.
Right? Yes, Neil?
Is there so that's connected to a telescope.
Yes.
What is that telescope?
This telescope is a Lunt 4-inch f7 at 714 millimeters.
Is it like a 90 millimeter, 100 millimeter?
102 millimeter.
102 millimeter.
Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is you have to find focus. And the way I did it, I took something that was laying in my observatory that was black, and I just held it up to the back of the telescope. And I couldn't find focus. So I started moving away and away and away, and I got back to about here and found focus. So that means I had to add a spacer in there.
A spacer.
Yeah.
A big spacer.
Well, yeah, that's, I don't know, 3 inches maybe. So yeah, I had to add a spacer. And it all depends on the focal length of your scope, of course, and how much, if any, of a spacer you will need. And at that point, you're ready. Once you figure out where, so you need to place the front of this where your focal image is 2/3 of an inch back from this edge. And then you slide that in and your slit's back here 2/3 of an inch in, and you're good to go. So now that we attached it to a telescope, we start beginning to see spectrum. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you this is easy. I mean, how many of you ever looked at spectrums before? I don't. Okay, a couple of you. I never have really. So it's like, okay, what is this? I see a big black line there, but what is it? Well, fortunately, the software that you buy with the device has a couple of features inside it. One's a frame grabber and one's a spectrum analyzer. So you can use a frame grabber to display this And you can scroll up and down to all these different places in the frame, or no, this is what you see in the spectroheliograph. You can use the spectrum analyzer to scan up and down inside the entire visible spectrum. So when you see this, you start scanning up and down in the spectrum analyzer until you find something that looks just like it. And now you know where you're at. And you know, okay, I'm on the hydrogen alpha line. That's what it looks like. Over here is the sodium doublet. That's iron. There's the calcium H and K lines. And so there is a learning curve. I won't deny that. But it's not that hard. Once you have looked at this a few times, you can pick out the hydrogen alpha line really easy. I mean, there's nothing else in the entire spectrum that looks just like a empty field with one big black stripe across it. And the same with the calcium. The only trouble is when you look at it in the program, none of these colors are there. They're just black and white. So that helps make it a little more difficult too. Now, a cool thing, for any of you guys that use cameras, you know they take up a lot of space, a lot of disk space. It's really hard to capture images quickly. And you want to take a couple thousand of these slit images. This is the slit image here. This is what you see when you're focused on hydrogen alpha. So everybody know what an ROI is? Region of interest in a camera? Okay, I see lots of nods. So basically you can tell your camera, go ahead and display the full width of the image, but don't show the full height. Just capture from here to here. So, well, that's kind of blurry, you can't really see it. But I shoot at 3,840 pixels wide and about 200 tall. And when you do that, it's not capturing all that data that comes from here to here. It's only capturing this bit of data. So you can capture a lot faster, and your files are a lot smaller because you're not saving all that data. You're only collecting the slit image. So using that method, I can capture 3,000 frames in about 15 seconds. It didn't work again. Okay, well that was supposed to be a slide showing you how it scans the image, but it's not working, so. So Christian Buell, who I mentioned earlier, that designed the first spectroheliograph out of 3D printers, his wife is a coder, and she wrote a program in Python to run this. And it's a nice program, but my laptop is kind of older, and sometimes it seems like every time we get a Windows update, Python doesn't want to work on my computer, and I have to go through all, right? So you got to go through all these gyrations and go out on the web and try to figure out what they did and fix it. So I learned about a guy named Cedric, I don't know how to say his last name, Champaue, C-H-A-M-P-A-U-E, something like that. Anyways, he wrote a program in Java. Even my old computer likes Java. Well, most computers like Java. And so that's what I'm using, and I want to show you next the features. So you scan your image, you dump it into his program, which is called JSolX. I forgot to tell you guys about Solex. Solex was Christian Buell's name for his original 3D printed device. Solex for Solar Explorer. And it was just shortened to Solex. Okay, so the very first feature, and this one I think is really incredible, is when you scan the image, dump it into the Java program, JSolex, the first thing it does is creates this image. It takes the sun, it takes the image of the sun and compiles it. All those little 3,000 slit images are sitting there, and it combines them all, makes them round if they're not, all through this incredible math, and then it creates this image. Well, this image is very important, and I'll try to explain this the only way I know how. How many people saw Orion last night? So when you saw Orion, he was laying on his back on the horizon, right? And about midnight, you looked at him again, and he's standing up. And this morning, if you went out to go to the bathroom like we did, you notice he's laying face down. So everything in the sky, the planets and everything else, kind of goes like this, and it tilts, which is fine for the moon and planets, because when they go like this, so does everything on them. The sun's fluid. The sun's just a big ball of gas, so things are moving around. So how do you tell somebody, oh, guess what I saw here? Well, they're like, well, where is there? And that's all going to depend on what time of day you took your image and where the tilt of the sun was in respect to up and down. Because like I said, it's going like this. So an object that's appearing down here is going to appear up here when it gets to the other side. So everything's always in motion and fluid on the sun, and someone created this program called the tilting sun. Some of you have probably heard of it, which goes by your latitude and longitude and your time, and it uses GPS to tell exactly where you are at on the earth and know what time it is and know what the tilt of the sun is at that time. So this is a really handy feature if you're doing science and you want to say, oh, did you see that sunspot at 3, well, some of these are numbered, some are lettered, but at like L3. Or did you see it when it was at M42? And you know, because it's constantly moving. So that is a really, really cool feature, to have that thing create that from your image. The other thing is, every time I post images on social media, somebody comes back and says, ooh, I like that picture. How'd you do that? What scope did you use? What camera did you use? What was the focal length? What kind of shutter speed did you use? Blah, blah, blah. All these questions everybody wants to know, and I understand that because that's how I learned. When I saw something on the web I liked, I said, hey, how'd you do that? Well, this program puts your name up there, the date and the time in UTC, what spectroheliograph you used, what wavelength you used, what telescope, what was the focal length, what was the aperture, what was the camera, and it lists all that right on that picture. So everybody knows exactly what you did to capture that image. I think that's pretty awesome. And the other thing that it does over on this side, it posts what I think is really cool, the Carrington rotation number. It's listed up there. The P, BG, and LO are just measures of solar luminosity and brightness. So it can gauge, like if there's a big coronal hole, the sun's going to be a little bit darker than normal. If there aren't any, like 2 years ago, there was nothing on the sun, it was just blank, it's going to be nice and bright because there's nothing there to block anything. So these numbers can give you information pertaining to that. And it's all created immediately after you scan the image and put it in this program. Here's some of the tools. So it'll show you a raw continuum image. So if you're shooting hydrogen alpha, it will take that hydrogen alpha image and it'll shift it 15 pixels to the left and show you a continuum picture. That's all it is just a pixel shift that makes that happen. And of course, there's the processed solar disk there. It can, well, I'll go through these and show you some of the other things. There you go, shifting the pixels 15 over, we get a continuum image, which is showing you the sun's photosphere. This is it's called a eclipse view. And it kind of looks like an eclipse. The sun's blotted out, and all you can see are what's out along the edges. It also generates that. It can take that eclipse image and your first picture, that one, and combine them and give you that image. It can invert the image for you. A lot of people like to look at solar images inverted. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people like that. It will take your image of the sun and shift it 3 pixels to the left and color everything it sees red. Then it'll shift it back to center, shift it 3 pixels to the right, color that blue, and guess what? We got a magnetogram or a Dopplergram. And you can see the sun rotates this way. So you can see all the material on this side of the sun is moving toward us, so it's red shifted. Everything over here is moving away from us, so it's blue shifted. And you can see that, and you can see some of the, like this filament right here, you see this part's red, right here it's blue. So that part of the filament is collapsing and the rest is rising up. Just to be able to see things like that is just, oh, so exciting. And you can see it here in these sunspots. You see red areas and blue areas all mixed together where stuff's rising, stuff's falling. The sun's very dynamic, and this tool allows you to see those dynamics going on. Can you tell I'm getting excited about this? Likewise, we can take that eclipse image and do the same thing and colorize it. You can see this prominence right here, part of it is moving away and part of it's moving toward us. Where it's white, it's just not moving away or toward, it's just there. Up here you can see this one's moving toward us, these are moving away. And this is stuff I've wanted to see my whole life. So finally being able to get to see it, I think it's just incredible. Down here is a bunch of stuff called the red shifts. And here you can see everywhere in that prior image where it saw a spot with a red shift in it, it would circle those. And here they are all listed. I hope this works. It didn't work. Okay, anyways, it will make an animation. Starts out right here. You can see you're looking at the solar photosphere. You're seeing granulation there. That's the surface of the sun. And then it begins shifting the pixels. And as it does, look what starts happening. You start seeing this stuff shooting up. And it's getting darker. We're moving off the solar surface and up into the up into the chromosphere of the sun, up where hydrogen alpha is. And you can see these things. This is a little flare footprint moving up into the atmosphere, and you'll see it go all the way up into the atmosphere. And I have a video, but my machine won't play it. It'll actually make a video, and you can see these things rising up and falling back down into the sun. They're like spicules. They're really cool to see in motion. When I get done, maybe I can... Yeah, that's where the video is supposed to be. And it's not happening. Okay, so this is my first attempt at a magnesium image, which is in the green portion of the spectrum. And as you can see, I got a lot of lines in here. And when I took that image, I sent a copy of it to Min, and I said, hey Min, why do I have these green lines in here? And the guy's a genius, I swear. He said, oh, that's a glitch in the program. Let me call the guy that wrote the program, and he can add a couple things. So when you shoot magnesium, you just push this extra button over here and it'll make them go away. And it did. But another cool feature is you can actually see the magnesium line here. That is so incredible, I think, to be able to see it and compare it. Okay, this is sodium. Sodium's in the yellow portion of the band. And you can see I'm dead center on that one. You could tell by the drop. I'm right on dead center of the sodium line. Okay, and I was telling you earlier about how you can look for a spectrum. This is the frame grabber. So this is actually taking my live image coming through the camera and displaying it, and then you go open up the spectrum analyzer and scroll up and down in it until you find these similar bands, and then it will tell you what band you're on. So that's a really nice tool in the feature, because none of us are going to start out knowing that, and we need to learn it, so it's nice to have that tool there to help us learn it. Oh, and this is another exciting thing that just blows my mind. So this is my image. This is the one I took. This is a gong image. Does anybody know what the gong is? Okay, it's a satellite that's out in space and just sits out there and takes pictures of the sun 24/7. So no matter what time of day or night it is, you can go on the gong site and see what the sun looks like exactly right now. This program will let you click a button over here and say, show me the gong image. Oh, there it is. Now show me my image. I'm sorry, this looks so, I should have got a higher resolution picture, but the thing is, it's so exciting. You see the filaments here and the spots, and they're kind of faint, because the gong is only a 5 nanometer bandpass instrument. This is 3, so they look so much more detailed and so much more contrasty as a result. And all your images with this device are going to be more contrasty than anything else out there on the market. Unless you want to go spend lots and lots and lots of money and buy double stacked scopes or triple stacked scopes. And and you know, there's even a drawback to that. You double stack a scope and it only gathers half as much light because you're putting it through 2 filters now. So now everything's extremely dim. You got to bump the gain way up on your camera, and now you're introducing noise artifacts, and it's just a whole ball of worms that I don't want to get into. And you don't have to with this. Now this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. This is the helium D3 line, which is extremely difficult to capture. The only person in the world I know that even makes a helium D3 filter is Jen Winters at Daystar. And it's pricey. And it's difficult to use, but it works. But this is comparing on spaceweatherlive.com. They had an image of the sun with a coronal hole. And if you look on here, there it is. Exact same thing. As far as I know, no amateur's ever been able to capture coronal holes on any device until this. And this, he wrote a paper on how he did this. As it turns out, the helium D3 line is only like 1% of the brightness of all the other light that's up there. So it's extremely difficult to see. Well, men figured out that this hydrogen moves out into the corona, and everyone knows how the corona is superheated and so much hotter and so much brighter than the surface of the sun. And he realized that this luminance in the corona was actually shining back down onto the surface of the sun and highlighting these details, which is something no one's ever done before. So I'm incredibly excited about that too. I want to do that. I just haven't learned how yet. And I haven't learned how yet because, as I showed you, when we left Ohio, it was 14 degrees, and when we, I'm sorry, yeah, when we left North Carolina, it was 14 degrees. And it didn't get up to 70 until we hit the Florida line. So I haven't been outside much learning how to use this.
I think it didn't hit 70 until you got the camera.
Yeah. Yeah. There was snow halfway through, almost all the way through Georgia. Maybe 50 miles north of Florida is when we saw the last snow.
Great.
And this is another big seller for this instrument. Every one of these images you can take with that guy right there.
But the actual image is just going to be a slit, and then the software just...
Yes. And so here's the hard part. I'll give you the hard part too. So this is what you use to tune to a wavelength, and it's marked hydrogen alpha, helium D3, magnesium, calcium K. It's all marked on here, and you just turn this little wheel back and forth, and that turns the grating inside, and that gets you to the wavelength you want. Once you get there, you have to turn this knob to refocus on the grating, because you've just moved the grating, so now you have to refocus with this knob. Every time you touch this knob, you have to go back and touch this knob. And after you've touched this knob and this knob, then you got to go back and touch this knob, which means you got to go back and touch this knob again, then this knob, then this. It's a vicious cycle, and it's a little frustrating, but when you get it, that's what you're coming out with. I mean, you're coming out with images like no one's ever seen before. And that's why I say this is a revolution. This is something that's never ever been done, especially on an amateur level. So for any one of us to walk out and spend $800 and be able to take pictures like that, I think is just crazy. And so that's why I wanted to bring that here and show it to you guys today. And again, there it is in my little snowy observatory. I hope that's gone when I get home next week. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for attending. Thanks for coming to my presentation. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, feel free. God, I really covered that good. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any sort of energy reduction filter on the front of your system?
No, sir. That grating, the way it's designed with the coatings, I think the number was either 100 or 150 times more light you can let through it without destroying it. So currently I've had it hooked to a 6-inch telescope at about f7 and sat there for 4 or 5 hours, and it didn't phase it. So they recommend if you use over a 4-inch telescope, you may want to add some kind of an ERF, but you got to be careful with ERFs with this thing because it can go anywhere. It's not like your hydrogen alpha scope where you can say, oh, I just need this ERF. As soon as you change the calcium, you need a different one. And you change the magnesium, you need a different one. And energy rejection filters, as I'm sure you know, are very costly. I've got a 6-inch one that cost about $3,000. And, so I don't use front energy rejection filters too much. I usually use a UV-IR filter inside the scope. Like, I'll put it in front of my spacer. I'll screw a UV-IR filter in front of my spacer, and that blocks the light, the UV and the ultraviolet. It hits that filter and gets sent back up the tube, which creates currents in your tube, so that's not a good thing, but the ability to use this without any kind of a filter is just great. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.